Well, I hope the Minister will share his good wishes to Deputy Wallace with the rest of the deputies in the Chamber and parties who may be contesting the European and the local elections. My question is about the recently published report by the Budgetary Oversight Committee, which, based on evidence given by Professor Micheál Collins from UCD, suggested that tax expenditures could be costing the state between 5 and as much as 10 to 15 billion per annum. And what I want to ask the Minister is he aware that a lot of these tax reliefs, once put into effect, have no sunset clauses, over 80% of them, and that 23% have never been reviewed?
The Oversight Committee in the area of tax expenditures and the publication of a report on the topic earlier this month. The committee has met with representatives of my department and revenue in January 2019. It's also met separately with the Parliamentary Budget Office and with the economist Dr. Micheál Collins from the School of Social Policy in UCD. The Budget Oversight Committee report acknowledges estimates of revenue forgone that can be different due to different definitions of what is included in tax expenditure. The figures of 10 to 15 billion euro of revenue forgone quoted in the Deputy's question is from the opening statement to the Budget Oversight Committee by Dr. Micheál Collins. The Parliamentary Budget Office aggregate cost estimate is in the region of 5 billion euro based on the Department of Finance's classification, which is narrower and is aligned with an OECD definition of tax expenditure. The work on tax expenditures review is continuous. The 2017 Tax Strategy Group paper on the topic noted significant advances have been made in the analysis of tax expenditure. Therefore, in the Department's 2014 Tax Expenditure Guidelines, a comprehensive analytical process for evaluations and ex-ante evaluations of proposed new tax incentives were put in place. With regard to the 8 recommendations made in the report by the committee, they are currently being considered by my department and by the Revenue Commissioner.
Minister, the essence of a tax expenditure or a tax incentive or a tax break, whatever you want to call them, is that it is provided to incentivise individual taxpayers or indeed companies or others to do certain things, create certain activities, generate economic activity. I think it's genuinely shocking that literally there are no sunset clauses. I think at a minimum we could try and address an approach to this whereby, as companies grow and develop, they contribute their proper share of tax contribution to the exchequer. I also think that it's important that tax expenditures should be reviewed. The R&D tax credit is a case in point, because we know it was intended for a certain type of activity, but we have not had sufficient analysis done to actually find out who exactly is benefiting from this and how is the country benefiting from it. I've put forward a private member's bill to create a standing commission which will constantly look at tax breaks.
Minister.
It's worthwhile acknowledging that all tax expenditures that have been commenced since 2014 have in fact been subject to sunset clauses. So since that point, we have brought in the requirement that the Deputy is referring to. And we have also, indeed, in the last 4 annual reviews that are done via the tax strategy groups, we have looked at different elements of tax expenditures. So, for example, in the 2018 report, we included reviews of the Employment and Investment Initiative, Agri-Tax, Help to Buy, as well as film relief and start-up relief for businesses. So each year, as we move through our tax strategy group process, We have looked at various tax expenditures, and as the Deputy may be aware, we're currently in the process now of doing that for the Research and Development Tax Credit. And each initiative that has been brought forward since 2014 has had a sunset clause, and the most recent change that was made by me in the last budget in relation to the tax credit for the film industry was also sunsetted.
Deputy, second supplementary.
Thank you. Well, that then is information that you obviously didn't communicate, you or your department, to the Budgetary Oversight Committee. You seem to be, the essence of the problem in this country is that these kind of tax breaks, where merited, can be extremely useful in generating economic activity and employment, particularly, for instance, in regions or parts of the country that need employment. And we know there's lots of parts of the country that are not getting the employment bonus they should be getting, that's evident in the big cities and towns. And what I'm at a loss to understand is why the Minister, the Department of Finance and indeed the Revenue Commissioners should be so reluctant to provide detailed information so that on a year-by-year basis or a 3-yearly basis or a 4-yearly basis we can make decisions as to what ones have outlived their usefulness and what ones deserve to be continued, and if there are cases for new measures.
Minister, just 1 second. I can afford Deputy Doherty a short supplementary.
Yeah, I want to focus just on one of these areas of tax forgoing, and that's the issue of vulture funds in this state buying up billions of euros of assets in the forms of individual mortgages and business loans and putting them in structures which are tax exempt. Minister, you're well aware that what the vultures are doing now is setting up special purpose vehicles under Section 110, which means they pay no tax on the multi-billion euro of assets that they hold in the form of Irish mortgages. This is an absolute scandal that they're being sold in the first place, but the fact that they are paying absolutely no tax on this here is another scandal. The Taoiseach said in response to our questions that he was going to look at this issue. Can you confirm to the House that this will be blocked now and it will not be allowed to continue post the Finance Bill this year?
Minister, 1 minute.
So in relation to the different questions that have been put to me there, firstly there from Deputy Burton, the information that I have shared with you and the House, I'm sure was shared with the Budgetary Oversight Committee. And we have already, as I've indicated to you, over the last number of years, looked to review tax expenditure, and I thought a good example of that was the work that we did in relation to the film industry. And while we might have had different views in relation to the outcome of that review, I don't recall anybody criticising the content of the review or the way that was being done. In relation to the question that Deputy Doherty put to me, as the Deputy will remember, no doubt, from the debate that we had in the Finance Bill, I gave a commitment to reviewing these matters in the context of the Tax Strategy Group process and the papers that they will produce before the summer. I explained to the Deputy the issue that we have in relation to timing, that if we do it as part of the TSG, by that point we'll have a full set of data in relation to the tax returns from that part of our economy, and I will deliver against that commitment, and that will inform choices that I may or may not make later in the year.